They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us.
Or some of these suspected cartel gunmen from Mexico are firing their weapons towards our agents.
The Mexican cartels are among the most dangerous and influential criminal organizations in the world. Their operations have not only brought chaos to their homeland, but have extended far beyond Mexico's borders, creating a significant challenge for neighboring countries like the U.S. These cartels are involved in illegal activities such as smuggling substances, human trafficking, and violent crimes. Their power stems from their wealth, networks, and the fear they instill. In recent years, their growing influence has sparked serious discussions about taking more aggressive measures to control their activities. The cartels have made headlines worldwide due to their ruthless methods and the tragic consequences of their operations. One of the most recent and shocking events involved the kidnapping of 4 U.S. citizens in Matamoros, a city on the Mexico-U.S. border.
Say they are working to secure the Americans' safe return.
The FBI working very closely with other federal partners and Mexican law enforcement agencies to investigate this.
This happened in Matamoros Friday, about a 12-minute drive from Brownsville, Texas. The FBI says the Americans entered Mexico driving a white minivan with North Carolina license plates.
This incident began when 4 individuals traveled from Texas to Mexico for medical procedures. What was supposed to be a routine trip turned into a nightmare when armed men ambushed them in broad daylight. The attack was captured on video and quickly went viral. The kidnappers acted with terrifying speed and brutality. Out of the 4 victims, 2 were tragically killed, while the fate of the other 2 left their families in a state of anguish and uncertainty. Later, a letter surfaced allegedly from the Gulf Cartel, one of the groups involved. The letter expressed regret over the incident and stated that the cartel handed over 5 men responsible for the crime. However, this apology did little to ease the pain of the victims' families or the fury it ignited in the political world. This event has deepened tensions between the U.S. and Mexico, leading to calls for stronger action against the cartels. U.S. politicians, particularly Republican lawmakers, have argued that the Mexican government has not done enough to curb the cartel's activities.
The United States as a whole depends on us taking decisive action. I have a 2-step approach to this, but first I want to just say we've been talking about doing something against the Mexican drug cartels regarding foreign terrorist organization designation for a decade, since 2012. Senator Kennedy and I are going to join forces. We believe Democrats will be involved to label these organizations.
Senator Lindsey Graham has proposed a bill to label these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. If passed, this legislation would allow the U.S. to use military force against them. Graham compared the fentanyl crisis caused by substances smuggled into the U.S. to a September 11th happening every 2 weeks, underscoring the urgency for action. Fentanyl has become one of the most significant issues in this conflict. It has claimed the lives of over 70,000 Americans in a single year, leading to a public health crisis of unprecedented proportions. The substance is smuggled into the U.S. from Mexico, where it is often produced using precursor chemicals imported from other countries. This deadly trade fuels the cartel's wealth while devastating countless families across America. The Biden administration has faced increasing pressure to tackle this crisis head-on. While the government asserts that it has the tools to address the issue, critics argue that the measures taken so far are insufficient. Some believe that the Matamoros kidnappings could serve as a turning point, pushing the U.S. toward a more aggressive approach. However, this raises questions about the potential consequences of military intervention in Mexico. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has firmly rejected the idea of U.S. military involvement.
And think tank, about 5% of the country's homicides are prosecuted. And a study last year reported cartels have expanded their reach, employing an estimated 175,000 people to extort businesses and traffic migrants and drugs into the U.S. Can you reach the cartel and say, knock it off?
No.
What you have to do with the criminals is apply the law. But I'm not going to establish contact, communication with a criminal.
He insists that Mexico's sovereignty must be respected and has argued that the demand for illegal substances in the U.S. is a major driving force behind the cartel's operations. Mexican officials have pointed out that combating these groups requires cooperation and a focus on both supply and demand. The cartel's operations are not limited to substance smuggling. Their influence is visible in regions like Tamaulipas, a state bordering the U.S. This area has become a battleground where cartels fight for control of lucrative routes. Violence in Tamaulipas is a daily reality, with civilians often caught in the crossfire. Recently, Mexican soldiers engaged in a fierce gunfight with cartel members in this region. The soldiers managed to neutralize several assailants and seized an alarming cache of weapons, including automatic firearms and grenade launchers. These confrontations show the cartel's access to military-grade weaponry, raising concerns about their growing firepower. The discovery of such weapons has shocked authorities. Since 2018, Mexican forces have confiscated hundreds of machine guns, rocket launchers, and other high-powered arms. These weapons, which are not legally available for civilian use in the U.S., often make their way to the cartels through illegal channels. The presence of such weaponry poses a severe threat to public safety and complicates efforts to combat organized crime.
They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
The relationship between the U.S. and Mexico is further strained by disagreements over responsibility and strategy. While U.S. officials criticize Mexico for its perceived failure to control the cartels, Mexican leaders argue that the demand for substances in the U.S. fuels the trade. This blame game has made cooperation difficult, even as both nations acknowledge the need for joint efforts to address the crisis. Improving border security is one potential solution. The U.S. has called on Mexico to increase efforts to intercept illegal shipments at ports and airports. Advanced technology and better intelligence sharing could help identify and stop smugglers before they cross the border. By disrupting the supply chains, authorities can weaken the cartel's operations and reduce the flow of illegal substances into the U.S. And this is what a Mexican president said after Trump's election.
A todas y todos los mexicanos no hay ningún motivo de preocupación. A nuestros paisanos y paisanas, a sus familiares que están aquí, a las empresarias y a los empresarios mexicanos, no hay motivo ninguno de preocupación. México siempre sale adelante, somos un país libre, independiente, soberano y va a haber buena relación con los Estados Unidos. Estoy convencida de ello.
Another important step is expediting the extradition of cartel leaders. Many of these figures operate with impunity, knowing that the legal process is slow. By streamlining extradition procedures, both countries can ensure that these individuals face justice swiftly. This would send a strong message that their crimes will not go unpunished and would disrupt the networks they control. Investing in security is also crucial. Mexico needs more resources to equip its law agencies to confront well-armed groups. The U.S. could provide financial aid and technical support to bolster these efforts. Strengthening cooperation between U.S. and Mexican authorities, especially in sharing intelligence, can lead to more successful operations against these organizations. Despite these strategies, challenges remain. The cartels are known for their resilience and brutality. Any crackdown on their activities is likely to provoke violent retaliation. Also, political and economic factors complicate the situation. Mexico is a vital trading partner for the U.S., and any instability could disrupt economic ties. Balancing the need for security with the importance of maintaining a strong bilateral relationship is a delicate task. The cartel crisis also has a human cost that cannot be ignored. Communities in Mexico live in fear of violence, while families in the U.S. mourn loved ones lost to substance overdoses. The situation becomes even more distressing when considering how openly these cartels flaunt their power. On social media, they share images and videos of their advanced weaponry, armored vehicles, and bomb-dropping drones. These posts intimidate their rivals and send shockwaves through Mexican society. The country's law enforcement agencies, including the Army, Police, and National Guard, already struggle to combat the cartel's influence. The increasing sophistication of the cartel's arsenal has made their task even harder. But where are these weapons coming from? The origins of the cartel's military-grade weapons are complex and rooted in a mix of historical and modern factors. During the conflicts of the 1980s, Central America saw an influx of U.S.-supplied weapons. Some of these may have eventually ended up in the hands of criminal groups. Additionally, the sheer volume of firearms in the United States raises concerns.
That uncovered nationwide networks of Americans that are smuggling weapons to the cartels. Here's a preview.
Occasionally, weapons from U.S. military stocks go missing or are sold illicitly, potentially finding their way into Mexico. Corruption and black market deals further complicate efforts to trace the flow of these arms. The disparity in gun regulations between the U.S. and Mexico also plays a role.
What is the intelligence project that's been unknown to the American public until now?
Yeah, so this is a project called Project Thor. It was the first U.S. intelligence project that was specifically focused on international firearms trafficking. And it really came about as a number of folks across various government intel agencies started noticing patterns. They all came together and were able to connect dots that revealed this sprawling nationwide gun trafficking network that was sending upwards of 1 million weapons each year from the U.S. and into the hands of Mexican drug cartels.
The United States allows the legal sale of certain firearms that are strictly prohibited in Mexico. This has created a lucrative smuggling market, as cartels exploit the ease of access to firearms north of the border.
Drug cartels in Mexico have been terrorizing Americans for decades. We're going to unleash the fury and might of the United States against these cartels.
Politicians are calling for war on cartels.
Is the United States federal government going to control our southern border, or are we going to let the Mexican drug cartels do it?
Operation Lone Star also had unintended consequences for cities far from the border. Thousands of migrants were voluntarily transported to sanctuary cities in Democratic-led states, overwhelming local resources and sparking heated political debates. While some viewed this as a necessary measure to ease pressure on border communities, others criticized it as a poorly planned approach. PERS mixed feelings among guardsmen. Financially, the operation has been costly, with an estimated weekly cost of $2.5 million and an annual budget of nearly $2 billion. It has required reallocating funds from other state programs. This has raised questions about resource prioritization and the long-term sustainability of such measures. And that's all we have for today's episode. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell while you're down there for future uploads.